Welcome to Gold and Black Live Final Four edition. We're recording a day or so earlier, but this is the April 5th edition. And our special guest is somebody that knows about Final Fours in Purdue. And this, of course, is the legend. You don't want to be a living, you want to be a living legend. Joe Barry Carroll, I think that's a
I
good
just want to be
place to
alive.
be.
Alive
Yeah.
is.
Live beats
I leave it to
anything
I leave
else.
it to your discretion what you put behind that. But as long as it's the living, that's a good
I
day.
remember we did this show when you came back, I think in 2013 for your bobblehead, and I've never laughed so hard on a show in my life. We got to laughing about something.
You were
I'm not
laughing
sure.
with me, right?
Never at you, because I can't do that. If I do that, it all turns to dust, my friend. But Joe Barry Carroll joins us, and if you don't know, you don't know Purdue basketball. But Joe was the All-American center in Purdue's most recent Final Four team, 1980, two-time All-American, #1 overall draft pick. The thing that's interesting about Joe Barry Carroll is yes, he was a tremendous basketball player, but the way he has lived his life, his art, his painting, we'll get into that a little bit. He also does a little financial advising on the side too. He's lived an interesting life so far, even after his days at Purdue. So, Joe, I got to ask you about this basketball team. You were the last one 44 years ago, last team to get there. What did it mean to you when you saw on Sunday that Purdue had beaten Tennessee and was heading to the Final Four? What went through your mind?
Like all the old players, we're excited, man. Each year they come. I mean, they've all a great program, and now to actually pass over into the Final Four is a good thing. I mean, even the year we went, it was kind of a surprise party. Nobody expected us to go. And I think with them, their season doesn't even, they're such a good team. Their season doesn't even start until the postseason. So it's a tough one for them when they, in the past, but now that's all behind us.
Yeah.
Not going to hurt us anymore.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I missed that last bit.
No, I was joking about the pain. I said, they're not going to hurt us anymore. We're in there now.
Yeah, no doubt. And it has been challenging.
Take all the rest of that to the barbershop. They can talk all they want in the barbershop, but we're in there this year. So there you go.
Yeah, a lot of pride among great Purdue alums, that ones that were on the basketball court and ones that just are associated with the university. And yes, I think there was a collective exhale at about 4:30 on Eastern time on Sunday as Matt Painter and company made it to the
well, finals. Nobody really expected us to go that far that year because we had a couple of rough spots during the regular season. So it was labeled a surprise party, not only for Purdue, but for the other teams that were in that 1980 competition. So, I mean, that's their disadvantage, is that they're so good. The current team is so good. People expect them to, it's a given that they're going to do everything during the regular season. The question becomes what happens after that.
Yeah, you guys in 1980 were a 6th seed, and you took care of business. You got to play your first 2 games in the tournament at home against LaSalle and Louis Carnesecca and St. John's, and then you beat Indiana, the 2 seed, and then of course Duke, the 4 seed, before getting to Indianapolis in the Final Four. When you go back and look at that, I mean, it was a great run. You were so dominant that season. You had some good complementary parts on that basketball team, an excellent coach in Coach Lee Rose. But looking back at that ride through, I mean, even that moment of beating Indiana and beating Duke, and that moment of going to the Final Four, what is your takeaway these 44 years later?
It's overwhelming. There's much more coverage internationally now. It's a given. They probably cover them every week. Back then, you had to get to the Final Four or in the postseason, deep into the postseason, before you get a lot of attention. And it was just overwhelming to see international press everywhere. I think we had several thousand people just to watch us practice at Market Square Arena for the as we were preparing, kind of thing. So I'm sure it's different now that, the guys, they're born stars. We had to create a situation for ourselves back then.
You mean in Denver East, you were not getting flown around the country playing basketball like they are in AAU? That didn't happen?
No, but I'm glad that it has moved to where it is because the players certainly deserve it. I really I admire this new generation of players. I mean, you always get this conversation between the dinosaurs and the current players about what is what, but I admire them. They seem to exercise a lot of agency about who they are and what place they what part they play in the game, and it's great. They seem to be having a lot of fun with it. Not that crazy about having to go that far away from the basket to earn 2 points, but
Yeah.
that's another decision.
Now you would have thrived in the NIL world, name, image, and likeness. I mean, I think that's an interesting because it is a maybe even more of a player's time than it's ever been.
Overdue. It's
You know,
overdue.
yeah, and do you think? I guess philosophically, this is an adjustment period, even with the transfer portal and the conference realignment. You're a philosopher at heart. Is this going to work its way out, or is this new norm for us older folks? Is what you need to get used to because this is the way it's going to be. How do you view that?
Well, it's long overdue.
Yeah,
Players have been struggling, and they have sold players historically on the whole thing about you get a scholarship or whatever, while their coaches are millionaires, or
yeah,
some coaches anyway are millionaires, and everybody else is prospering. I never was quite sure. I mean, there are all kind of theories as to why they held back on compensating players who are the game. So I
yeah,
think it's overdue. I'm happy for the players and their families, especially given the volume of players that never play professionally,
yeah.
you know, and generate all those revenues for the NCAA and college basketball. Hell, I was riding a bicycle at Purdue. I mean, and these guys. So it's, and I don't regret any of that. I mean, fortunately, I was in a position that I did, end up having 11 years of professional basketball, but everybody doesn't have that opportunity. So I think they have to get it in when they can, and I'm happy for them.
Joe Barry Carroll was an economics major, so he rode that bike to Cranert every day, and he didn't stick out at all. I know. Joe was a great student in your day, and have continued that love of education. It seems to me in your entire life. So
Well, it's been
that
helpful. Purdue is it's a great foundation.
yeah,
Uh, I manage investments for high net worth families now, and uh, that's where a lot of my understanding of what was important came from. You know, and nobody really cared. I don't remember being creating much of a stir on campus back then. I'm
yeah,
sure I was uh, an extra large student,
yeah.
but know that they were, most of my classmates or whatever, they were overly impressed by the basketball player in class. Just be
Yeah.
on time, get your work in, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, well, they didn't, and the ones that got to scratch your intellectual ability, that was all the better for them. So that part, I
I'm
think you
grateful.
did very very well with.
Thank
When you look, I want to ask you about this little guy that plays for Purdue, number 15, Zach Edey. Give us your impressions of him. You've seen him obviously on the basketball court, and then I want to follow up with how would Joe Barry Carroll defend this guy if you had the chance? He's a good 3 inches taller than you, and probably weighs another 30 or 40, well, maybe 60 pounds more than you weighed when you were playing.
He's a star.
Yeah,
I catch occasionally little bits of basketball talk, that when the guys go to the barbershop and everybody's
yeah,
arguing who's best, blah blah blah, kind of thing. But there's no dispute, he is a star. Now, if he's your type of star, that's a different type of thing, or not. But he's a legitimate star. I'm wishing him all the best.
yeah. You look at how the NBA has changed, and that's been the dynamic. There is like, oh, and there's been a little bit of the dynamic. He's just tall, and I suppose maybe you heard
No,
some of
no,
that too in your day.
he's a player.
Yeah,
He's
no
not.
question.
No, you can't. You cannot achieve what that young man has achieved by just being tall. There are many tall players in the world. He is a star.
Yeah, well said.
And it's not even, and he's got even, I mean, he's a star in the present moment.
Yeah.
And a lot more is coming for him because at some point he's going to be playing on a whole different level, and he'll react to that just as well as he did in college.
Yeah, you're confident that there'll be a place for him in the NBA. I mean, I again, his work ethic
Why not?
tells me it will.
The question would be, why not? What is the why not? Why would someone who's that dominant and playing as well as he has played? Why would you? The question would be, why not? Not if, but why not, given what his achievement has been.
Yeah, he has been terrific. All right, you had a good.
Basketball is just that way. I mean, that's what makes our basketball world go around, is that there are all these conversations, but
yeah,
it's like, what do they call they're just opinions, basically.
Yeah.
I was going to say something a little more colorful, but that I know you got a family show here.
It's the internet though, my friend. You can say whatever about whatever you want, but no, I think it's true. I think there's a narrative on him that is unfair for some. I think his work ethic has been unmatched, and he has just continued to get better. Yes, he runs it. Of course, Purdue goes through Zach Edey, as Purdue did with Lee Rose, went through Joe Barry Carroll. I mean, it makes some sense to do that. I mean, that's a logical thing to do. All right, take me back to, I know one thing, and I'd heard your point guard, Brian Walker, who was a point guard on your team, your last team. Of course, you've had others, and the great Eugene Parker and Jerry Seasting and even Bruce Parkinson in your freshman year. But this Braden Smith,
way back, man.
Yeah, you're right. But I don't know. Braden Smith has done a terrific job as Purdue's point, and has been a great teams have great point guard play and great guard play, and it seems to be a premium of that in the NCAA tournament. From an observation standpoint, just how Matt Painter and this team runs its offense, what do you see?
They're in the Final Four.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how much more. I don't follow it close enough to get down into the weeds of it.
Yeah.
I just become a Purdue basketball fan when I'm watching them. They make me a little nervous sometimes, because it seems like games that I've seen that they're in there a little bit, and it's a little confusing what direction we're going. But at some point, it comes together for them in a great way, and especially for us, it kind of allows us to sit back in our chair after a while and enjoy the game and not be worried, that we're going to have an unhappy ending. But they've done great. They've done well. I just don't know. I don't know what the a serious debate is about them, especially given where they are now.
Yeah, no doubt. When back in your trip all the way down I-65 to Indianapolis to the Final Four, again, I understand that the lights maybe are a little bit brighter, but it was starting. It certainly was a big deal in 1980 as well, when you guys took on UCLA, and it was Iowa and in Louisville in the Final Four. Brian Walker, I was about to say, always said, "Oh, it was kind of a disappointment because we only went 60 miles down the road. We didn't get to go to Phoenix, Arizona for the Final Four." What was your takeaway from that experience and the opportunity to play for a national championship? And you played you didn't win the national semifinal, but you played a consolation game and beat Iowa in that. But
well, I'm going to disagree with them. If we had walked across the street to play that game, it would have been a big game. So having to fly to some distant place to play one of the biggest games ever, that's lost on me in terms of the importance of how far you fly to have that game.
Yeah.
But that's Brian. I think Brian lives in Lafayette, so I'm sure you see him frequently.
Yeah, we love Brian. And he's going to be I think he's making his way to Phoenix, but yes, Brian, that is Brian, and what a player he was. Talk about any of your other teammates that you do stay in touch with, and of course, and I know Arnett Hallman still lives overseas, and of course maybe some of the other guys that you played with early on, other ones that you hear from time to time, especially in moments like these when your alma mater is going to the Final Four.
Being in the NBA with Jerry Seasting and Keith Edmondson, and some of the guys, you run into guys like that. But I mean, some of life for basketball players often, unless you're involved in the game professionally post-career, you may talk to guys on the phone, you say hello, or you may run into them at the All-Star game or something like that. But it's kind of like I think jobs that a lot of people have in corporate America. They work for someone, they do what they're doing, they enjoy it, and then you move to other things. So my life after basketball is circled around investments in art and literature. And I don't run into many of my guys there, but I do see them at the All-Star game. I may run into them around town for different events. Every now and then they trot out the old dinosaurs and let us, make up a lot of stories. You'd be amused to hear these stories. It's incredible. You're looking at them and you've got a room full of people telling stories, and everybody's got to take turns. And each story is different. So it's a bit amusing, but it's always good to see the guys when you do see them.
And how many of those stories are true? Factually, are they factually
correct? True to
them. They embellished over time? Yeah,
it's true to them. I mean, it's fun. I mean, if you talk to me long enough, I mean, I joke when I'm doing my readings, I'll do a little spot on basketball, and I'll tell them, the longer I live, the bigger my career will have been. Because you start, you maybe I was the all-time scorer in the world, as long, because over time, a lot of people aren't around to dispute it or whatever. So you have fun with it, but it's all for fun. It does. I mean, it's kind of just being silly, really. Nobody really believes half of what we say.
Yeah. Fact checking is at a premium when it comes
to that. Don't check the fact. Leave it alone.
Joe Barry Carroll now is third on Purdue's all-time scoring list for those who care. Zach Edey, number 1, Rick Mount, number 2. And I think Zach also passed one of your rebound totals. That's not to diminish anything you did, because there wasn't any diminishing that. There is no show or no conversation I won't have with you, because a person that's sadly but importantly memorializing Eugene Parker and passed away a few years ago, but still played a huge role. Of course, Eugene was a great player at Purdue from 1975 to 78, so he played a couple years with Joe. Then went on to be a sports agent, but a great humanitarian, father, etc. But I reflect on just him a little bit, because it's so important that people know about his legacy, and it came up a lot in his passing, but he still lives through a lot of things, and that is an important. I would guess he still lives through you in a great way.
Yeah, and he walked it. I mean, it wasn't just mythology or some idea. I mean, if you're around this cat, you would see he is the guy that people report that he is. I mean, even now, because we talk about him all the time. Roosevelt Barnes is his partner in the sports agency. He and I are, we talk frequently, and Gene comes up every time for one reason or another. And it's always something productive and good and kind about him. And we're all proud to have known him, to spend time. He's actually the reason I came to Purdue. He was my host when I came to visit. And I think the second night, I mean, we were all together the first night, but the second night, we didn't even go out and enjoy West Lafayette's booming social scene. We ended up just staying in the dorm and just sitting there talking all night. And it began a conversation that lasted all these years, because I was there at the end as well. So it's one of the relationships that I'm very proud of. We invested in each other. We carried that relationship. Sometimes he carried it, sometimes I carried it, but we were both committed to that being a lifelong relationship.
Yeah, I think that's a lot about what this experience is supposed to be like in college and as a player with teammates.
Absolutely, we did not have to make that narrative up. That was a real narrative lived out in the light of day.
Yeah, we still hear a lot from Walter Jordan, and enjoy that as well. And he is full of life in living, I think, down in your area as well. But a lot of guys that were really good players. You played in a time in the Big Ten. It's hard to imagine it really being better players ever in that league, and not only guys at Purdue, but of course the Magic Johnsons and the Kevin McHale and the Michael Thompsons of the world. Do you try to tell when you're telling your stories about how your great career, though I know you don't embellish it, you do talk about how many players there were in the Big Ten? Kelvin Ramsey, Clark Kellogg, on down the line. Is that a fair statement?
Well, they're great players, but I also would add that, I mean, they're great players now. I think each generation has to adjust to who their stars are. So we had all those guys, and then I think people became accustomed to them being the stars, especially as they moved out of college into the NBA and European players and that European play and stuff like that. But these guys are pretty good now. I'm definitely not one of the old cats who are critical of these young guys. I like the way that they're very athletic. They run fast. They jump high. They have opinions. They're stars. I mean, it's a treat to see them, especially at their age, because they're so young. I mean, they're coming out of high school now, so that's even more surprising. I mean, you look at someone like LeBron James. Not only is he just the most incredible basketball player, but he's also this great citizen. And doing these kind of things. And early on, I think I was one of the few people who had a foundation doing nonprofit work. All of these young cats, they have their own foundations. They're doing all these great things and building schools and educating children and trying to make the world better. So I think we sometimes in the midst of our chatter about players, I think this is not directed at you, but we have to step back and realize that every generation has its own identity, and we need to, be with that and just, kind of move on, keep it moving.
That's why you and I get to talk maybe once a year, if that. Sometimes I send you a note on Martin Luther King Day. You always provide a perspective of it's real. And it is so true that looking at the big picture. And joebarrycarroll.com is a place, but I really encourage folks, and I have over the years, about not only your work in painting and in literature, but I've always been interested, and you've told the story before, but how you got into that, because your family story is amazing with your wonderful mother Annie and your siblings, and that's worth its weight just to learn that story. But how did you always have that affinity for art and literature, or did you really cultivate that after your college days were done?
I think there's a famous saying by somebody. I think a lot of times they attribute it to Toni Morrison, I believe. She said, if you don't see it, you go create it. I did not want to have to campaign to the book publishers or to the museums to get permission to do my art and to write my books. So I just created a publishing concern whereby I could distribute my own work. And it gave me a lot of flexibility because a lot of the work, I combined the art with the literature, and that's uncommon. So I got a chance. I didn't have to get permission from anybody to do what I wanted to do. And I was in a position that I could fund it myself. So I just did it. And we've had a really great response from it, and people like the work. It's a little, I mean, art world is, and writing books is almost as competitive as basketball. When you hear these people speak in these glowing spiritual terms as writers and paint and artists, but you would think that everybody joins in and each one helps one. No, you got to compete. So I've got a whole.
So the basketball court helped you in that.
Yeah. Well, where it really helps is with criticism, because every player, I mean, think about it, LeBron James get criticized. Some people even question his talent, which is like ridiculous. And with art, it's the same thing. With the way I write, it's the same thing. So when people talk about, aren't you worried? Or there are a lot of artists who won't even release their work because they're worried about criticism. I'm going like, you try playing basketball in America, you'll find out what criticism is. You'll have people writing about you that never have met you. They don't know you. They're repeating something that was given to them. So in that way, for sure, it prepares any artist or writer, and I have a lot of flexibility, mainly because they're not the boss of me. They don't get to tell me what to do.
Far be it for any of us to try to do that, Joe. I think that
or anybody else, because there's this thing, Alan, that there's, for some people really are impressed by what I'm doing, and I tell them, I use that as an opportunity to remind them that all of us have something in us that is yet to be explored. we thinking that there's some special way to get to it. Sometimes you just have to jump in the deep end of the pool and start swimming. You may, never know what you come up with, because we sometimes stop at the thing that we've been most successful at. Or if you make commitments to your family, you can't just come in one day and say, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be a painter, whatever. You got to stick with the commitment that you made to your family, but sometimes maybe you want to take a chance.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to come up with, because I had no idea that I've always been a fan of art, but I didn't know that I had this ability to perform on the level that I'm performing, or even as a writer, to understand how to construct a tale, to do storytelling, which is what I grew up with as a child with, in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Before I moved to Denver, I lived in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, even at a time when TVs were fairly new. You do a lot of entertaining with yourself, because I'm at that age now. I'm gonna start talking like, an old man. I got Social Security.
No,
man.
Not possible.
I'm 66 this year.
Yeah. That's 66 years young. Yes. Your family, you grew up in a large family, and it's you're
number
growing
10
up,
of 13.
Yeah, is unbelievable. And how you guys got your way around in that environment is a story in itself. And one of my favorite, I think your first work was Growing Up, and that is kind of details a little bit of that process. Black American Voice is also another one, and My View from 7 Foot, which I haven't checked that one out yet.
I have as many of those as you'd like.
There you go. All right. I didn't know. So you're optimistic about going and looking into this weekend. Purdue obviously will play North Carolina State. Then hopefully either UConn or Alabama. And I know that I'm assuming you're not dissecting every play that's going on, but you're optimistic about Purdue's chances, at least based on what you've seen this year, to do well in Phoenix.
I have to. I'm a Boilermaker.
There you go.
Even if they were some other type of team, I would pretend, but I'm not pretending. I mean, what happens with the postseason play, and what makes it so exciting to the players as well as to the people that follow, is that you just don't know. You never know what's going to happen when you go out there. And that's been, the excitement for everybody, is that somebody comes out of nowhere and there they are performing at this high level and maybe even winning the whole thing. But Purdue is a very good competitive team, and they're going to go out there and, try to make it happen. They have as good a chance. I don't know why they would not. I mean, as good a chance as anybody else.
Well,
because
I remember
the season is just crazy. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's why everybody loves to watch the tournament. There used to be back before, maybe even before your college days, they used to do a one-on-one show in the NBA, and they'd play Kareem versus whoever, Walt Frazier or whatever.
He played Julius. I think the one thing you saw was, I think he and Julius played.
I want to know if Joe Barry Carroll and Zach Edey played one-on-one. Tell me a tale of why you could beat him. Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody wants to see that. See a 66-year-old man playing this young man.
No, I'm talking about Joe Barry at 22.
I know that's what you mean. I don't know. I mean, it looks like whoever's defending him have their hands full. I'm noticing that they're dropping down, they're what they call collapsing on him. The guy that defends him is behind him. You got somebody in his lap. You got someone coming around. That's why they always caution big guys never put the ball on the floor to dribble it, because there's somebody around who's going to pick you off, kind of thing. I have no idea. The answer to your question is I have no idea, and I'm glad that's not my charge. That's not my responsibility. He's strong. He's dunking on people's head. They say back in the old days, because it's just like if they give him that little alley between him and the basket, he's going to take it. Yeah. And being as tall as he is, that certainly helps. I would caution people about taking credit from him because he's so tall. There are a lot of tall people in the world. There are a lot of tall ball players in the world who have not racked up the kind of success that Zach has done. So I think we should just all have fun with it and watch him show out and have a good time with it and let him show us, let him answer all those questions.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a chance. He is going to get a chance to do that. And I think there's a narrative that will end in a good spot no matter what happens to Purdue this weekend. Joe, thank you so much for your time. It's always a privilege. You brighten up our day, but you also
you're gonna make my eyes leak. Stop.
I know, but you also provide a perspective that I think is excellent, and we appreciate that. So I know you'll be in front of that television at 6:09 p.m. Eastern on Saturday when Purdue takes on North Carolina State, and hopefully, if you're a Purdue fan and you are, you'll get an encore performance on Monday night. So best to you always, and always appreciate your time. And we'll look forward to talking. We'll look forward to seeing you in West Lafayette again for another exhibition of sorts. So I hope that day comes soon.
Something.
You got to do something. There you go.
Yeah, got to come back to the house.
All right. We will stay tuned, and in a couple minutes we'll be back with a little North Carolina State breakdown, and we'll talk that and more as Gold and Black Live continues.
All the best, man.
Thank you.